At this point, I knew the mission was to make our way to Middle Tennessee. We pulled out of the hotel parking lot, which was overlooking their literal apartment sitting in the middle of Tunnel Road. We hooked a left, drove to 40, got on the westbound ramp, and it was closed. Little did I know that was because half of 40 washed away. So we turned around and we went east, jumped on 40, headed east. We got to the next exit, which was, I think, the Biltmore exit, and I couldn't go north. I knew I needed to go at least north, couldn't go north because the Biltmore area was completely underwater. So we went south. And with the little signal I had, I jumped on my phone to see, okay, what are the routes that I can take? And I noticed I-26, which I've never driven on. So I knew I needed to make my way to I-26, but every side street was closed. So we just kept going south, but we were going so slow. We were in this single file line of cars because there were trees down everywhere. I mean, as we were driving, we were seeing massive trees on the side of the road, just in the middle of the road, power lines. We have to go through parking lots to circumvent the power lines. My biggest concern was driving safely. As a dad of 4, I knew that driving without a car seat was dangerous. Amidst all the, chaos and destruction, there was a pocket of cell service where I was able to call Kim and update her on us and where we were headed. And she updated me on Hank and that he hadn't quite made it to Asheville yet. He was still stuck out 81, at least the last that they heard, and I'm assuming he also didn't have signal at that time. So I was really nervous about missing him and us just being caught in this loop of trying to find each other. But I knew Hank, and I knew that he would have wanted me to get them to safety. That was priority number 1. So I knew my best bet was to head north, away from everything. And so as soon as I found 26, that's what we did. We jumped on 26 and we made our way up.
As we're driving, we see the same destruction that we escaped from, and we still couldn't help but feel for these folks, even though we're in the same position. They're displaced, they have nothing, their homes are destroyed. People trying to pick through the little bits of home that were left in some cases that the water was already draining from. We saw cars smashed against trees, we saw cars flipped upside down in the river, and there was trees everywhere, power lines everywhere, and we're just trying to keep Henry distracted in the car. And I'm terrified, but also so safe in that car. Henry didn't have a car seat, so we're just trying to hold him with us in the back seat, and he's having the time of his life. We had just enough snacks at that point that we're able to keep him distracted, and trying to keep his attention in the car and not outside.
As I was making my way down, every mile, the damage became worse and worse and worse. And started getting really scary when I saw power lines crossing the road and power poles, taken out, and trees everywhere, and people slowing down to a crawl, trying to go around just to get through the road. Seeing the streams constant, just a deafening roar of water at the road's level, at the edge of the road, and just knowing this is bad, this is dangerous. And I think going into that, I had known that Bonnie had made it out, and I didn't have contact with Ryan, I don't think, for quite some time. When I finally got to Asheville, we came off of an area that was, I guess, that ran along the French Broad, and that had flooded, and it took me quite some time to turn off to go to Bonnie and Quinn's, and there were people just stopping, just watching, just standing there, just kind of like in shock, watching the flooding and taking video, taking pictures. That was frustrating, trying to get through all that, because I was, trying to get to my family. So when I finally arrived at the location, there was basically just chaos and mud and water and people just walking around, and I So I remembered hearing that Ryan had found a way, a path behind the hotel. There were people standing there, and I could see the apartment complex or parts of it. And I saw a young couple, and I said, "Do you know any of the people that live there?" And they said, "Yes." And I said, "Do you know Bonnie and Quinn?" And they said, "Yes, we saw them this morning." And they led me back to the path where the hotel. Very friendly young couple. They said that they were staying at the church and that they were okay and they were safe, just wet and scared. And so we hiked to the church and they weren't there. The church was shut down. We went to the house behind the church. The preacher, he came out and he said that yes, he remembered them and that they had hiked over to the Quality Inn Hotel and they were there waiting. So I hiked back over to that hotel and the hotel was shut down, and I just assumed that Ryan knew that it was time to get the hell out of there and left. He knew I would find him. So he took off, and I think that was a part I was like, well, I gotta get a signal. I gotta find out if they made it. So I drove in the direction of Black Mountain, and that seemed to be clearing up, and I had no idea the scale of the damage. I thought, well, maybe I'll just drive a few miles. I could get back to power and signal, and as I'm driving 40 east, Kevin calls me, my son, and he says that he was breaking up. He says, "Ryan's heading to Knoxville. Go to Knoxville. Ryan's got everyone. Go to Knoxville." And I lost signal with him, and I was driving some more trying to find a signal, and I called my wife, and they said Ryan was heading north to Johnson City. I said, "That's where I'm going." So I told her, I'm going to drive that way. I'm going to probably lose signal. I'll call you when I get to Johnson City.
We're on I-26. We're making good time. We're driving the speed limit. 3 lanes wide, and I felt like we're on our way home. We get about 15 miles, and we become a single file gridlock. And I can only see about 30, 40 cars ahead because it's up around the bend, and we're just stuck there. But we're slowly moving. And when I say slowly, I mean we moved about 200 feet in about 45 minutes. Sure enough, I see in my rearview mirror some blue lights, and a trooper flies past us, and he parks the car kind of across the interstate, from what I can tell. And cars start turning around right there and going the wrong way on the interstate towards us. And so we make our way up there, and we ask the trooper, we say, "Hey, what's going on?" He said, "It's impassable, and it's going to be at least 48 hours till you can get back on 26. So we turned around, drove the wrong way, and to the nearest exit, which was exit 11. And as we approached exit 11, I thought, well, everyone else is getting back on 26 going the correct way south. But as I get to that exit, I look off in the distance and I see a BP, and there's a bunch of cars there. So I figured either they're getting gas, if they have gas, or they're just parking there for the night, because it was starting to get dark, and I knew it would be dangerous for us to drive around in the dark. So we drove over to the BP, and yes, the gas station was shut down. They had no power. People were parked in line at every stall, probably to reserve a spot for when the power was turned back on. There was a couple, 2-3 dozen cars there parked around the perimeter, parked on the side, on the street. And I had a truck, so I drove it through the grass up this hill to give us a little privacy so we could use the restroom, get the dogs out, and prepare just to assess the situation.
We get to the BP. Ryan pulls the truck up on a hill kind of farther away from everybody else so we can have some privacy. We all have to use the restroom at this point. We need to get the dogs out of the truck. We need to just stretch our legs, and we need to figure out what we're doing next. So there's no way that we know to get out of town. We know we're in Wolf Laurel from seeing signs, but other than that, we don't know the area at all. There was some other truckers drove up, and they kind of parked near us, so Ryan went and talked with one of them. I went and talked with another one, and the gentleman that I talked to was also from out of town, and he said, you know, every major road is closed. He was trying to get to Tennessee as well, and he said that he was looking at going through all the way south through Georgia if he could get there, but was unsure if he could even get there. We're realizing that we are likely just, you know, our best bet is to just sleep at this gas station, and there's about 24 other cars there, so we're not alone. There's people there. So we're realizing, okay, we have water, we have no food, and we're not worried about us adults. We're not worried about the dogs. We're worried about the baby. I had a little bit of breast milk that I was able to pump at the church, and I knew I'd pump again. I had limited pumps on my battery life, but we were gonna do what we needed to. So I talked with my mom, and we were just about to go start walking around the cars and just asking, does anybody have any fruit or crackers or anything that we can feed the baby at this point?
I was on my phone, sending messages via satellite to Kim, updating her on our position, our plan. A few truckers were trying to reach out to their families, and so I used my phone to reach out to their wives or spouses to let them know that they were safe. You know, the vibe at the gas station was kind of surreal. It was hopeful, but you know, we're a little unsure. People were making campfires. You know, there was camaraderie. People were talking. It felt kind of tailgatey. You know, it was just unique, something that I never experienced. We knew at this moment that we were probably going to be staying overnight at the truck stop. First things first, we needed to find food for Henry.
As we're literally about to go start walking around, this woman walks up to us, and she has a grocery bag full of diapers and baby snacks and a handmade blanket that was the same colors of one that a family member made for Henry. And she said, I'm so glad you guys are still here. You know, I saw you when I was driving to my mom's house. I saw you up here on this hill, and I'm so glad you're here. I wanted to bring you stuff, and you know, what do you need? Where'd you come from? And we told her the story, and she said, where are you trying to go? And we said, Tennessee, but we don't know, we can't get out. And she said, you know, my mom has an Airbnb up the road, and I told her about you guys, and she said the Airbnb is open for you. So if you want to come with us, like, well, I'll take you there. Is there anything else you need? And I totally jokingly, trying to make light of the situation, said, no, I mean, we don't even have a car seat. We have nothing. And she said, I have a car seat. And she told us that the day before they bought an upgraded toddler car seat for their child, and said they wanted to give us the baby car seat. We followed them to their house about 5 minutes away, and her husband brought out a car seat in great condition, in great shape, super safe, super clean, and helped us install it. We get Henry in the car seat, and then they take us to her parents' house just a couple more minutes away, and we pull up to this beautiful home with a barn on the side, and we met the Ramseys. And they, you know, we told them what happened, and they welcomed us into their home. They took Ryan and I up to the barn to show us, and you know, it's dusk at this point. There's not much light out, so we're going by flashlights, and we see the barn, and it's beautiful. We're just so thankful to have a place. We couldn't see anything hardly, and we knew it was beautiful. So she shows us in. It's a small room. There's another small room, and there's porta potties behind the home, or behind the barn, for us to use. And then she asks what else we need, and I said, do you have any cow's milk, any regular dairy milk, because my supply is low. And turns out she's a labor and delivery nurse, so she knew exactly what I was talking about. Told me I needed to hydrate and I needed to eat. That conversation led to us telling them we hadn't eaten all day. It's maybe 7 p.m. or so at this point. And she said, I'm gonna figure out something for dinner, don't worry. So we get our stuff into the Airbnb, into the barn, and we're trying to settle in. And then we hear they made us pancakes, they made us dinner, and they want to break bread with us. So we all make our way down to the house. We leave the dogs at the barn, and it's a very short walk, and we get there, and it's by candlelight. We're getting to know their family, and one of their other daughters lost her entire home in the flood as well, in Fairview. So, you know, we kind of commiserated with that and just got to know them and hear their story and tell our story. And between our 1-year-old and their, I think, 2-year-old, it was just some light. Just their daughter had the sassiest attitude about that flood took her home and that flood took her computer. And, you know, it was just a little bit of joy there for us that we all really needed. Mr. Ramsey brings in a big white basket, and it's full of diapers and some baby toys and a baby blanket and snacks and toothbrushes, just those essentials that we desperately needed. And we even said, you know, to their other daughter, like, what do you need from here? And she said, no, that's all for you guys. We are fine. This is for you guys to take with you. And then we ate the most delicious blueberry pancakes and bacon that we've ever had. And they sent us back with some more snacks and another flashlight and made sure we had waters.
Breaking bread with the Ramseys, sharing stories over candlelight and pancakes was a great way to kind of settle us after all the adrenaline. We gathered the things that they had offered to us, and we made our way back to the barn.
We got Henry, went to sleep immediately, and I pumped, and my mom and I just talked for a while, and off and on we slept, and thankfully we had power banks for our phones and some cords that Ryan had extra. And so we were able to keep our phones charged for flashlights through the night and music playing because we couldn't have the quiet. Off of their home was just a gravel road, and every time a vehicle drove up or down the gravel road, it sounded like trees crashing and falling and homes crashing into our home. And so that music and just being with the baby, we got through the night, got a couple hours of sleep, if we're lucky, maybe 2 hours, and talked most of the night.
As Bonnie, Beth, Henry, and the dogs started to settle in the barn, I decided I was just going to sleep out in the truck. They needed that space, but I took that opportunity to go into an open field where there were no obstructions and got on the phone and began satellite messaging Kim. She asked for her address, I sent it to her, and we said our goodnights, and I made my way to the truck and shut the doors, locked myself in, and just laid in the back seat. I had a blanket, I had a pillow that Bonnie brought out to me from the Airbnb, and I began to just rest. As I was laying in my truck, looking out through the window, the stars, the trees, the wind in the trees, the helicopters and the planes buzzing overhead, I needed to kind of settle myself. So I threw in my AirPods and got on my iPhone, and I didn't have a whole lot downloaded on my phone. But the very first song that pulled up was a song by the Wailing Jennies. No joke, it was the only song I had on my phone. And it was called Apocalypse Lullaby. Look it up. It was eerie, it was crazy, and I had a good laugh in my truck in the middle of the night after a crazy hectic day.
So this was about 9 o'clock at night after driving all day. I assumed that Ryan and everyone that had made it out, they were in Johnson City, and I couldn't, there was no call, no signal. But somehow I just kept trying to call, and I got through to my wife, and she said that, you know, Ryan and them had found an Airbnb, which I just thought was the most bizarre thing. Like, how do they reserve an Airbnb at this time? You know, I was like, well, I said, that's great. I mean, how did they even make a phone call to get the Airbnb? But that's all she told me. I said, well, they're fine, they're safe. And I just proceeded just to kind of hang out in my car and just hear the talk between the state troopers and people, everyone asking questions, and it was just basically the answer was, I don't know, and we'll see in the morning, and you know, and that the road's impassable. At that time, I thought, well, maybe in the morning they could clear it up. It was just high water. Did not realize that what had happened was that the side of the mountain had basically landed on the freeway. Everything was impassable. 5 o'clock came around, I got up. And I just happened to check my phone, and the text came through from my son, Quinn, of the address of where the Airbnb was. And again, spotty signals, touch and go, getting text here and there. But that one I caught, and I realized the road it was on, I'd been on that road earlier. And I turned around the way I came and headed in that direction, and within 25, 30 minutes, I found, I think was a house. It had the same street address, street number, and but it was dark. I couldn't really tell. The house that I pulled up to didn't look like any of Ryan's vehicles or anything, and like this country people sleeping, and you know, it was like didn't want to go knocking on the door at 5 in the morning, 5:30 in the morning, and so waited for the sun to come up, and I drove back and I saw Ryan's truck, and I said, I found them, and I pulled up.
I hear this car pull up. You know, all throughout the night, cars are passing by on this gravel driveway on the left side of the truck. And here it was 6:30 in the morning, and I hear this car pull up on the right side of the truck in the grass and like stop. Door open and get out. I sit up quickly and I see this tall silhouette outside my door, and it was Uncle Hank. I was so freaking excited.
Poor Ryan was asleep in the back of his truck, and he looked at me in the most shocking eyes. He says, Uncle Hanky, just in total disbelief. And, you know, we hugged, and just, we were both, you know, happy that we found each other. And we went and saw Quentin, Beth, and little Henry, and just, it was a great reunion.
We hear a knock on the door. It's about 7 a.m. and Ryan says, I have someone here. And he opens the barn, and in walks in my father-in-law.
At that point, I just knew that we're safe, and now we got to get out of here. So
I have Henry Jean.
Okay, I'm gonna walk down with Henry.
We're together. Whee! Whee!
We get our stuff packed up, and we walk down to the house to say goodbye to the Ramseys and tell them that we're heading out. They pack up all the supplies for us that they were giving us, and Miss Ramsey, Haley, handed me a box of protein bars, and she said, you know, you need to eat. I don't care if you're not hungry, you need to eat to feed your baby. So she made me take those protein bars, and we gave them just the biggest hugs, and they said, you know, if you guys can't get out, please come back. You know, we will keep the barn open for you. It is ready for you there. So we get on the road, and, you know, we're nervous. We're not sure how we're going to get out, but we're going to find a way out.
You know, seeing the generosity of the family that took in my nephew, my daughter-in-law, my grandson, and her mother, just the generosity of these people, and we met them, and they gave us things, gave the baby things, and even offered for us to come back if we couldn't get out. But I knew that we had to leave, just with the uncertainty of the roads and the water and things washing away, and realizing the magnitude of just, you know, that there's not anywhere really safe, and we could not stay here for 2, 3, 4 weeks at a time. We had to get out.
I was so relieved that Hank was there. I knew that the odds of us getting out of Asheville had dramatically increased with his guidance, his knowledge of the roads, and a bonus, his maps worked. Not because of signal, but I guess whatever he had downloaded or had saved on his phone was still working. So that was awesome.
Both Ryan and I assessed our gas situation. We both had like 150 miles each in our tank. And I knew that the path that I took in, I was close to that path. The path that I took in to get down to Asheville, I knew that the road was clear and that we could get out that way. So the plan was, you know, I talked to Ryan and Bonnie and said, let's try this. I think we can get out and we can be home, you know, in 4 to 6 hours. So we loaded up the convoy and took off. What I learned with this adventure was just like around every curve that you don't know if there could be a tree across that road that wasn't there before, or water, or something that's going to make it impassable. So we got up to the Nolichucky River, and of course there were sirens everywhere, and we found out that they were concerned that the dam was going to break away and that the bridge was going to wash away, and it was impassable. We could not pass that bridge, and they said that there's no way around, that they may open it the next day, but you just did not know. And what was kind of wild about this is that we looked over at a convenience store right before you get to the dam, and they had power. And that was just such a relief, because I thought, well, if we gotta try to navigate our way back through these mountain roads, we're going to have to get more gas. And Ryan and I were just so happy that we were able to fill up our tanks.
Filling up. Got Hank behind me there. Got a plan.
We pull in, we get in the line, and I hop out to see if the market is by chance open, since the gas station has power, and it's not. But I see two families talking, and I walk over to them and I say, "Hey, are y'all from here?" And one of the gentlemen in the truck is actually a firefighter in the community, and he said, "What do you need?" And I told him where we came from. He said, "I can have a place with power if you need to charge pumps. Let me see about finding some food and water for you guys." So he directs us up the road to a feed store that has power, so they have a bathroom that they've opened up to the public, and then shortly up the road from there is a market. So I go back to the truck, and they gave us a sandwich for us all to share, and I handed it to my father-in-law, and I said, "Hank, I knew that at this point Hank hadn't had any food or water with him except for what he got from us finally." So I made him take the sandwich.
People were concerned, but they were courteous. And we had a couple of conversations with people filling up their gas cans and filling up their tanks. And there were families there handing out food, someone handed me a bacon and egg sandwich that they'd made that morning, and just the generosity of people, even at that, with all the unknowns, they were just, giving.
We made our way to the feed store and miraculously had cell reception, so I call Quinn and I'm able to hear his voice for the first time all day since we got out, really. And I update him and say, we're at this point, wards are closed, we're heading back to the Airbnb. So I ask him to update the rest of my family. I do call my sister and I hear her voice for the first time, told her the same plan.
We got plenty of gas and we loaded up. And
590 miles.
we thought, well, we'll just go back to the Airbnb and just wait it out and see if we can get back the next morning. And so we trekked back, and we found a little grocery store that had some additional supplies.
We buy the supplies that we can. We get a lantern that we can charge in the truck, and beans and weenies, packs of nuts, packs of tuna, some caffeinated sodas just to keep the drivers going. And we had $80 and the total was about $79. So we had just enough to cover what we were needing. And we get back out to the cars and my father-in-law says, "Change of plans. I think we should make a go for it. We shouldn't go back to the barn. Let's make a go for it."
And as they were shopping, I was thinking about, I did not feel safe going back to the Airbnb and just staying put, because I thought it could be weeks before we got out of there. We might be stranded where they have to come get us in a helicopter or something. And I just thought, we cannot take that chance. We have to get out of here. So I looked at just the map on my phone, and I saw that I tried to look at roads that were kind of away from big bodies of water and on the outskirts of mountains. And I thought this would be the way we could do this. We could just keep trying to, circumvent the mountains, not go over the mountains, but circumvent the mountains and try to stay away from the big bodies of water. And I thought, this is a way. And Ryan and Bonnie and Beth, they put their trust in me, and I said, we're going to get out of here. And we headed out.
Hank was pretty confident, and his confidence was enough for me. My only worry is that we wouldn't have the convenience of the Airbnb if we got stuck somewhere. But I know I wouldn't have chanced it without Hank. I would have just stayed at the Airbnb until I figured something else out, until I had better cell service. But his confidence was enough.
So on our way out, it seemed very promising. Like some of the roads were like wide open. We could do 55 miles per hour, and just like I said, well, this is going to be a piece of cake. We're going to get out of here sooner than we think. Once we got through those clear sections, we would come across small, narrow country roads, and that's where we would find out that the road's impassable. And we'd have to turn around and back out several miles and then try to find a road. Must have done that a dozen times, if that. And every time we would get to a point where I thought, we're breaking free, we're going to get out, there was major catastrophe right in front of us, like a Dollar General scattered across the road, or a bridge is gone, or 2 feet of mud across the road, or law enforcement saying you can't go this way. And so it was just time and time again, and just kept asking myself, how many times can we be told you cannot pass this way, you cannot come this way, and that's where I just kept hunkering down and saying, we're going to get through it. Don't give up, just keep pushing. And some of the trails, some of the roads were trails. It was, just please God, show me some daylight through this. I want to see light, daylight. I want to see a clear road. And towards the end, we were making good progress, and I noticed that the damage was lessening. Less trees, less power lines, less mudslides, and
Going north was a priority. And sometimes we have to go west, sometimes we have to go east because we had to get turned around. But as long as we could find a road north, we felt good.
We're driving through Elizabethton on the way to Bristol, and we suddenly have reception. So I call my husband, and Ryan calls Kim, and we tell them, there was a change of plans. We're not going back to the barn. We're heading to Knoxville and then to Murfreesboro that night. So Quinn jumped into high gear and said he was going to get it ready for us.
Once we got to 81, we were practically home sweet home. I knew that we could get home, and it was a smooth ride, hardly any traffic. We had cell service. We were golden.
Finally arrive at the Airbnb in Murfreesboro, and I'm standing outside in the driveway in the rain, and Quinn pulls up, and I finally got to see my husband for the first time, and we ran to each other. And me and him and Henry just embraced, and I was so happy. I could barely cry. I was so happy to see him. And it was the first time that I could actually breathe, along the way when we got rescued by the people at the church, when Ryan showed up, when my father-in-law showed up, the barn, every step of the way there was little bits of a little bit of weight off my chest, just a little bit of weight off my chest.
You made it.
But as soon as I saw my husband, I felt safe, and I was okay because I was home. Our home was gone, but our home was there because we were together. We really are having to start over. We lost everything. We lost our home. We lost the town that we loved, and it's scary. It's new, but the outpouring of support and love and prayers that we've gotten has just been so overwhelming, and we are so appreciative and just from the bottom of our hearts deeply grateful for everything. But we've still got a lot to figure out and a long way to go. My hope for Asheville and Western North Carolina is they come out of this strong. Along the way we met just such incredible souls that through devastation wanted to help one another. And I have friends and coworkers there who are dealing with their own loss and with just devastation still. And it's overwhelming to think about how much work it's going to take to get Asheville back to what it was. And it may never be the same. It likely won't ever be the same because some businesses are gone, buildings are gone, trees are gone, just those physical things are gone. But the spirit of Asheville is still there. The spirit of the Western North Carolina is still there, and it will take time, but it will rebuild. Someday we'll get to go back and we'll get to enjoy the area again. Even though we've lost everything, material possessions, family heirlooms, items that truly cannot be replaced, we're gonna be okay. We have each other. If nothing else, this really is the epitome of all that matters is your family, and we made it out. And it's gonna take time, but we're gonna rebuild and we're gonna be okay.